The day my husband introduced me as his little homemaker to the board of directors at his company's gala, I smiled politely while mentally reviewing the evidence I compiled proving I was the true architect of his most successful business innovations. In 2 months, I would present my patent applications and business records to his stunned executive team. But tonight I would play my part one final time. I am Liz Harrington, but most people in the business world know me only as the wife of Robert Harrington, founder and CEO of Pinnacle Solutions. My academic credentials, a PhD in computer science from Stanford and an MBA from Harvard, have been reduced to framed certificates gathering dust in our home office, replaced by the role of corporate spouse and hostess extraordinaire. When I met Robert, I was leading a promising AI research team at a technology incubator in Silicon Valley. He pursued me relentlessly, not just romantically but intellectually. "Your mind is extraordinary," he would say over late-night discussions about algorithmic efficiency and market applications. Together, we could build something revolutionary. I believed him. I believed we would be partners in every sense of the word. That belief led me to marry him after a whirlwind 8-month courtship, and subsequently to integrate my research with his business ventures. Looking back, I can map precisely how skillfully he executed his strategy of appropriation. The first project was collaborative, at least superficially. We developed a predictive analytics engine that became Pinnacle's flagship product. Robert handled the business development and investor relations. I architected the technical solution. When the press coverage emerged, I was conspicuously absent from the narrative. A technical team under my direction, he would say in interviews, never mentioning that the team consisted primarily of his wife. "It's better for investor confidence," he explained when I questioned him. "They want to see a strong, singular vision. We know the truth, and that's what matters." I accepted this reasoning, focusing instead on our next innovation. Each time, the pattern repeated. My work, his acclaim. Over 5 years, I watched my contributions systematically erased from the company's history, my role reduced to supportive spouse in the official narrative. The wake-up call came during an evening when I overheard Robert speaking with Gregory Phillips, his chief financial officer and longtime friend, in his home office. I had come to discuss a breakthrough in our latest project, but paused outside the door upon hearing my name. "Elise is getting restless again," Robert said, talking about wanting more acknowledgement for her contributions. I could hear the dismissive quotation marks around the word. Gregory's laugh was uncomfortable. "You have to admit, Rob, the core algorithms were her design. The Hanover contract wouldn't have happened without her innovations. The concepts may have come from her research, but I'm the one who made them viable," Robert replied. "She's a theoretical academic, I'm a businessman. Ideas without execution are worthless." Still, Gregory persisted. "Maybe give her some formal role. Technical advisor or something. The board might actually." "The board follows my lead," Robert interrupted. "Besides, we have a good arrangement. She gets the lifestyle and security she wants, and I get to run my company without complications. The prenup ensures she'll never have any real claim on Pinnacle's assets. Why mess with a system that works?" I stood frozen outside that door, a proposal for our newest project clutched in my hand as the full reality of my situation crystallized. I wasn't a partner, I was an asset, a resource to be mined for valuable ideas, then kept comfortable but contained. That night, I began planning my response, not an emotional confrontation, but a strategic reframing of our relationship. If Robert saw our marriage as a business arrangement, I would approach it with corresponding pragmatism. First, I established independent documentation of my work. For each project I had contributed to at Pinnacle, I compiled comprehensive records, initial concept documents, development notes, testing protocols, all meticulously time-stamped and authenticated. I stored these records securely away from our home systems, which Robert's IT team maintained. Next, I consulted with a patent attorney, not one affiliated with Robert's extensive business network, but a specialist from another state recommended by a former colleague. Under her guidance, I began filing patent applications for my most recent innovations, careful to focus on concepts not yet implemented in Pinnacle's products. For 18 months, I maintained the appearance of the devoted corporate wife while systematically building my position. I opened separate financial accounts, reconnected with professional contacts, and quietly consulted on projects unrelated to Pinnacle's business. all while continuing to provide Robert with the brilliant innovations he had come to depend on. The most difficult part was suppressing my natural inclination to confront the injustice directly. Each time Robert presented my work as his own, each time he introduced me as an ornamental afterthought at corporate functions, I smiled and played my role while mentally cataloging the incident as further evidence. The culmination of my strategy came at Pinnacle's annual Innovation Showcase, an event where Robert traditionally announced the company's breakthrough developments to industry analysts and major clients. This year's centerpiece was to be an adaptive security protocol that promised to revolutionize data protection for enterprise clients, a system I had designed from concept to implementation. I sat in the front row as Robert took the stage, watching him prepare to claim sole credit for my work one final time. As he began his presentation, an assistant handed him a legal document. From my seat, I could see his expression shift from confusion to disbelief as he read the notice of patent approval. My patent approval for the very technology he was about to present. "Is there a problem, Robert?" I asked when he looked up and met my eyes. The remainder of the event was a masterclass in corporate damage control. Robert recovered quickly, announcing a strategic partnership with a new security firm, a shell company I had established months earlier as the holder of my patents. The analysts were intrigued by this unexpected development. The Pinnacle executives were visibly confused. In the aftermath, Robert demanded a private meeting. We sat across from each other in the Pinnacle conference room, the same room where my ideas had been harvested for years without acknowledgement. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" he asked, his voice tightly controlled. "Establishing appropriate valuation for my contributions," I replied calmly. "Just good business practice. We're married. Your work at Pinnacle was part of our partnership. A partnership suggests equal recognition and shared benefit. You've presented my work as yours for 5 years while reducing me to a decorative accessory in the company narrative." He leaned forward, switching tactics. "Whatever issues you have with credit attribution, we can work them out. But filing patents independently crosses a line, Elise. It's practically corporate espionage." "One cannot steal what rightfully belongs to oneself," I countered. "Every patent I filed is for my own original work, meticulously documented and legally distinct from Pinnacle's implemented products. I've been careful not to violate any proprietary rights. The prenuptial agreement covers marital assets and your ownership stake in Pinnacle. It does not entitle you to my intellectual property created independent of company resources." I slid a folder across the table. "My attorneys have reviewed the contract thoroughly. You might want your team to do the same." The negotiation that followed lasted weeks. Robert oscillated between threats of litigation, attempts at emotional manipulation, and finally, surprisingly reasonable settlement offers. The board of directors, once they understood the situation, recognized the precarious position Robert had created for the company. Having my innovations suddenly under independent control represented an existential threat to Pinnacle's product roadmap. In the end, we reached an agreement that benefited all parties. I would become Pinnacle's Chief Innovation Officer, with full acknowledgement of my prior and ongoing contributions. My patents would be licensed to Pinnacle under favorable terms, but I would retain ownership. The company's historical records would be amended to accurately reflect my role in its foundational technologies. Our marriage, however, did not survive the renegotiation. The trust had been irrevocably broken, not just by Robert's systematic appropriation of my work, but by the fundamental dishonesty about what our partnership meant. The divorce was surprisingly amicable, perhaps because Robert recognized the vulnerability of his position if we couldn't reach a reasonable settlement. 2 years have passed since then. Pinnacle continues to thrive, now with my name properly attached to the innovations that drive its success. Robert and I maintain a professional relationship that is cordial, if not warm. The industry publications that once described me only as Robert Harrington's wife now reference my technical contributions and leadership role. Yesterday, a young female engineer approached me after I gave a keynote address at an industry conference. "I've been following your work since you were publicly recognized as the architect behind Pinnacle's core technologies," she said. "But I've always wondered, why did you wait so long to claim credit? You must have known the value of what you were creating." I considered her question carefully before answering. I believed in a partnership that didn't exist. By the time I recognized the reality, Extricating myself required strategic patience. Sometimes reclaiming your value means first documenting it beyond dispute. Wasn't it infuriating watching someone else take credit for your innovations year after year? Of course, I acknowledged, but I channeled that frustration into meticulous preparation. Anger might have prompted a confrontation I wasn't positioned to win. She nodded thoughtfully. So you played the long game. I recognize that in business, as in chess, the winning strategy sometimes requires allowing your opponent to believe they're in control until they've overlooked your actual position on the board. As I watched her walk away, I reflected on how different my journey might have been had I understood earlier the importance of safeguarding my contributions. Now, as I mentor young innovators, particularly women, I emphasize this lesson. Partnership requires mutual recognition and respect, not just shared ambition. And when that respect is absent, the solution isn't immediate confrontation, but strategic reposition. The irony doesn't escape me that Robert's greatest business miscalculation was undervaluing his most important asset. In treating me as a silent partner rather than an acknowledged collaborator, he ultimately lost both my personal commitment and exclusive access to my professional innovations. Next month, I'm launching an independent research initiative focused on ethical applications of AI in healthcare, a field I've wanted to explore since my graduate studies, but set aside to support Pinnacle's commercial priorities. For the first time in nearly a decade, my name alone will appear on the founding documents. There's a particular satisfaction in seeing your own signature on something you've built, a satisfaction I had forgotten during those years in the shadows. Robert taught me an invaluable lesson, though surely not the one he intended. True partnership cannot exist without equality of recognition. In business and in life, we must insist upon proper valuation of our contributions, or create spaces where that value is self-evident. Sometimes the most powerful position in a negotiation is the one you build for yourself when others aren't paying attention.